Welcome to The Book of Life, a show about Jewish people and the books we read. I'm Heidi Estrin. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida. Additional support comes from the Association of Jewish Libraries. Fall is the time for many holidays that have sustained the Jewish people over the centuries, so in this October 2006 episode of our podcast, we'll take a look at Jewish continuity. We'll learn about the past from Alice Hoffman with her new young adult novel, Incantation. We'll examine the present with Abigail Pogrebin and her book, Stars of David, in which prominent American Jews talk about being Jewish. Steve Singer will share the contemporary Jewish music of his a cappella group, Listen Up. And we'll hear from the next generation as 15-year-old Leah Larson talks about Yaldah, the Jewish youth magazine she founded herself. Are you ready for a little time travel? Here we go! Alice Hoffman is the best-selling author of over 20 books for adults, teens, and children, including the well-known Aquamarine, Practical Magic, and The River King. Her new teen novel is Incantation, published this year by Little Brown and Company. It's the story of Estrella, who lives a comfortable life in medieval Spain until anti-Semitism begins to rear its ugly head. Her life unravels as she discovers that her family are Marranos, practicing Judaism in secret. It's a beautifully written, intense story of violence and of love. We spoke to Alice by phone at her home in Boston, Massachusetts. Alice, tell us about Incantation.
Incantation is something that's very different for me. It's a historical novel for older teens. The story takes place during the Spanish Inquisition. I'm not a historian, and it's a period that I really knew nothing about, and that's part of the reason why I decided to write the book. I have always wanted to find out more information in the Marranos. To me, it seemed such a secret world, and it just seemed like such a horrible choice to have to make between your life and your faith and belief. So I've always been interested in it, and this kind of was a way for me to find out more about it.
How did you research the story?
Well, I did a lot of reading, and I went on the web. I read a lot of history, and when I was done with the book, I had a historian at a university go over just to make sure there was no glaring errors. But really, I was interested in the emotional content of characters who would have lived through that time period. And so it's really a story about relationships and emotion and betrayal.
What was the most interesting thing you learned as you did the research?
What was really interesting to me is that there's so many Marranos in the southwest of the United States who, from what I've read, don't even know to this day that their families were Jewish. It's just that they have some traditions that are not typically Catholic traditions. That to me was really interesting, is that the further away you get from it, the more you lose of who you were.
What were the challenges in bringing this story to life?
I feel like I wrote as a student, really discovering things. And what I really felt in writing the book was that it was so in tune to what's happening in modern times right now, and had so much to do with what's happening in Israel, what's happening with the war that we're involved with in the U.S., what's happening with conflicts between Muslims and Jews and Christians, and that it's kind of an ongoing cycle. What really surprised me was how modern a lot of these themes really were.
What do you hope readers will remember the longest after reading Incantation?
I think it's really important for us to understand our own history. I think it really informs how we function in the world today. What I was trying to learn from writing Incantation was I was trying to find a way into tolerance. How do we live together, and how will we ever make this work? This is just such a cycle of prejudice and anti-Semitism. What I want to really do with this book is raise issues and raise questions for people to think about. I don't know if there are so much answers in this, but I think there are a lot of really important questions that get raised. The one thing I guess I would want to add is that I do think it's for older teens, because it is a very violent period and a very brutal time. Of course, people see that on TV and on the news all the time right now, but my sense is that it's a better book for older teens.
Alice Hoffman, it's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Heidi. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Abigail Pogrebin has been a producer for Charlie Rose, Bill Moyers, and 60 Minutes, and is now a freelance journalist. Her new book, Stars of David, was published this year by Broadway Books. We spoke to Abigail by phone at her home in New York City. Abigail, tell us about Stars of David.
Stars of David is a book in which I interviewed 62 fairly prominent American Jews about how they feel about being Jewish. So it's everyone from Dustin Hoffman to Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, from Natalie Portman to Beverly Sills, Larry King, Mike Wallace, Sean Green of the LA Dodgers, I guess now he's on the Mets, talking about Jewish identity, whether being Jewish matters to them, and if so, how much, whether they're observant or not, how they were raised, how they've raised their own children, whether they married other Jews. It's kind of an exploration of religious identity from the perspective of people who live a public life.
How did you recruit people to interview?
Mike Wallace was my boss at 60 Minutes when I was a producer there, and he agreed to talk to me early on. Sarah Jessica Parker's husband, Matthew Broderick, also happens to be Jewish, although he's not in the book. He and I went to grade school together in New York, but I had a hunch that when I emailed Sarah Jessica, she wouldn't think I was some crazed fan because of the connection to Matthew, and sure enough, she agreed to talk to me. Leonard Nimoy was in a Torah study class with my parents. Gloria Steinem, some people may know that she and my mother, Letty Pogrebin, co-founded Ms. Magazine a couple of decades ago. So Gloria said yes early on as well. So I started with those people whom I knew. And then once that list was there, it convinced others to come on board, and it kind of snowballed from there.
Was it difficult to remain neutral, to avoid comparing your own personal Jewishness with that of each person that you talked to?
In a way, I didn't have to be neutral. I could have my own opinions, my own confusions and ambivalences. It's part of what led me to the questions I asked. My goal was for people to be honest. I really wanted candor. I didn't want a kind of prepackaged, look how great it is to be Jewish kind of response. Because even though I think many people and most in the book take great pride in being Jewish, it comes with all kinds of questions and conflict. So I didn't worry so much or judge so much what they actually said. I was guided by what was interesting. I stopped worrying about whether or not it would be a politically correct Jewish book or not.
What was the most interesting or surprising thing you heard during your interviews?
One of the most interesting was just the issue of observance and how people struggle with it. I think there's always a worry in the Jewish community that we're losing Jews to a very secular kind of life. And I think that that is certainly represented in this book. What was also really surprising were the people who wrestled with certain aspects of their Jewish life. For instance, Kenneth Cole, the designer, he and his Catholic wife, Maria Cuomo, had agreed when they got married to raise their 3 daughters as Catholics. And he admitted to me that that decision is hard for him every day of his life. That was a really moving and fascinating admission and unexpected. And then you had someone like Dustin Hoffman who talked about how he's come to his Jewish identity late in life and it's come to matter to him as he gets older. And someone like Ruth Bader Ginsburg saying that she turned her back on Judaism in many ways because of the sexism that's inherent in the tradition. So there were many mini revelations.
Has this project had any impact on your own feelings about being Jewish?
I think this project upended my Judaism in a way I truly never expected. It made me want to be a more educated Jew. It made me want to make up for some of the gaps in my own Jewish training. We always celebrated the Jewish holidays, but I didn't go to Hebrew school and I was not bat mitzvah. And so when I started this book, I really felt the absence of that Jewish grounding. I started to study Torah at the same time that I was writing the book, and I really was much more challenged and engaged and kind of turned on by that study than I expected. And it really made me want to give it to my children, a sense that this text is theirs to kind of dissect and debate and question, and that that's the best of the tradition, is that it really makes you think and it really makes you ask.
After talking to all these people, what do you feel is the state of Judaism in America today?
I think it's undeniable that Judaism or Jewish observance has to be kind of reinvented in a way where more Jews are engaged and interested and connected. Now, I would say that this is a slice of a population. It is an unusual slice because these people live in the public eye, and it's only 62 Jews. So that's where I hesitate to make any grand statements about what it tells us. But I think that we would be foolish not to listen to what these conversations contain, because I do think that they're representative in many ways.
Abigail Pogrebin, thanks so much for speaking with us about Stars of David.
Thank you for inviting me.
Steve Singer is founder of Listen Up, the world's only pop, klezmer, jazz, Yiddish, Hebrew, country, western band with no instruments. Steve, his wife Rebecca, and band members A.Y. Karsh, Chuck Finkelstein, and Kevin Kirschenbaum perform energetic and entertaining Jewish a cappella for audiences ranging from tots to college kids to bubbies and zadies. We spoke to Steve about this very contemporary take on Jewish music by phone at his home in Chicago. Steve, can you try to define Listen Up for us?
I can try. We call ourselves, our little tagline is that we're a pop, klezmer, jazz, Yiddish, Hebrew, country, western band with no instruments. We are lovers of Jewish music who don't take ourselves too seriously.
Can you give us a little bit of band history?
Sure. It began as a vocal jazz group, and at the time we were not singing only Jewish music, we were singing a bunch of different stuff. And then one disastrous weekend, we lost 2 or 3 members of the group for this reason or that reason, and the people who were left were all Jewish. So we cut out a new path doing strictly Jewish music. That was about 14, 15 years ago. That's how it all started. You know, in the 15 years, we've performed all around the United States and Canada. We released 3 recordings, Shimuna, Al Hanisim, and Euphoria. We've performed in the mixed quintet, meaning with Rebecca as a female vocalist. When we perform for Orthodox audiences, we have a all-male ensemble that performs.
How do you take a regular song and turn it into an a cappella song?
The magic of a cappella for us is that you have a sort of a picture of the song in your head. And I think that the craft of a cappella is reproducing vocally key features of a song, whether it be rhythm or the melody line or maybe the style of the song, whatever it happens to be, and reproducing those vocally so that they sort of conjure a mental image of the song. When we're performing, we tell people to close their eyes and hear a band. Believe it or not, even though it's only 4 people, it sounds like a band because we're imitating instruments in the way that they sound. We're imitating different features of songs that people are familiar with. So I think that that's a big part of it.
Is there any philosophy behind your combination of traditional Jewish music with these very American music styles, or is this just what you ended up with?
I'm not sure that we thought a lot about it. I think that from the experience of performing over 15 years and the recordings that we sold and the nice way in which people respond to the music, that if there is any philosophy, it's that we want to be an entry point for people who may not be familiar with Jewish music or may not be comfortable with Jewish music or may not know Jewish music or may not know all the words or all the Hebrew, whatever. I want to create a very accessible entertainment that, number one, they can enjoy on its own merits, and then, by the way, it also is infused with a lot of love of Judaism, of Jewish things, and Torah, and all those things put together. I think that if we can hit one or several of those points, then we've done a good job.
Steve Singer, thanks so much for talking with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
For Listen Up CDs, visit the Feldman Library or buy your own copies at jewishsong.com. When Leah Larson was 12 years old, she founded a magazine for Jewish girls by Jewish girls. She named it Yaldah, Hebrew for girl, and modeled it after American Girl magazine. Going strong since 2004, the quarterly magazine reaches readers around the world. An editorial board of over 20 girls ages 8 to 14 conduct interviews, write articles, test crafts, and create artwork for the magazine. We spoke to Leah by phone at her home in Sharon, Massachusetts. Leah, why did you create your own magazine?
I had always looked for a magazine for Jewish girls, and I couldn't find one. I found a couple for younger Jewish kids or older Jewish teenagers, but nothing really for young Jewish girls. So when I saw that there was a magazine like Yaldah, I decided to create it.
Would you describe a typical issue of Yaldah for us?
Everything's written by girls, or illustrated by girls, photographed by girls. Each issue is about 48 pages, professionally printed, and usually we'll have 1 or 2 fiction stories written by girls. We'll have a quiz, we'll have a recipe or a craft, an interview with either a girl or a woman who's Jewish doing something interesting. We might have a book review or a music review, and also like advice, like how to make the most of moving and babysitting tips. We have a modest fashion column, really whatever girls contribute.
Is Yaldah including anything special for the fall holidays?
Actually, we've learned that with our first issue, we tried to put in a craft for Sukkot, and then the issue was delayed and it came out after Sukkot. So now we try not to put anything too timely in, although we did have a quiz, how much do you know about fasting, for Yom Kippur.
What has the response been to Yaldah?
I've had a tremendously positive response from girls, from their parents, from teachers. Girls have said that they're so happy to have a creative outlet and a way of connecting to other Jewish girls and feeling special to be a Jewish girl. And they're very eager to participate, to be on the editorial board, to send in their ideas for articles and stories. And parents really say the same thing, that they wish there was something like this when they were young, and they're just happy that Yaldah is there for their daughters.
Can any Jewish girl contribute to the magazine?
Yes, we'd love to hear from all Jewish girls. They could either go to our website, which is www.yaldah, YALDAH, magazine.com, or they could email me or send it in the mail. We have a post office box, and all that contact information is also on our website.
Can you tell us about the Jewish Girls Retreat that Yaldah magazine is sponsoring?
I was in camp this past summer. It's called Bat Mitzvah Camp, and it's in Albany, New York, and it's for Jewish girls ages 9 to 15. It's about the same target age as Yaldah. And I was speaking to the director, and I had always kind of envisioned a retreat or convention where Jewish girls could get together and really meet each other in person. We decided to go together and sponsor this retreat. We're really just trying to welcome Jewish girls from all locations, backgrounds. They'll just have a really great way to meet other Jewish girls.
What do you see as the future of Yaldah magazine?
I hope to continue to stay involved, definitely. I hope that as I get older and I'm not exactly in the age range, we'll have some more girls helping fill that role. Also, we have lots of plans that we would eventually like to do. We've thought about selling games, books, clothing, and possibly making movies for Jewish girls, ideas and dreams that we're not ready for now, but hopefully in the future.
Leah Larson, thanks so much for speaking with us about Yaldah magazine.
Well, thank you.
If you'd like to share a page from your own book of life, or to express your opinion on our show about a particular book, CD, or video owned by the Feldman Library, email me, Heidi Estrin, at heidi@cbiboca.org. The Book of Life is supported in part by the Association of Jewish Libraries, promoting Jewish reading by supporting Judaic libraries and librarians. Visit them on the web at jewishlibraries.org. Our background music is provided by the Freilach Makers Klezmer String Band from Sacramento, California, whose CDs feature upbeat music from the Ashkenazic and Sephardic traditions with Brazilian, Gypsy, and Celtic influences. Borrow their CDs at the Feldman Library or buy your own copies at freilachmakers.com. To download episodes of the Book of Life podcast, visit us on the web at jewishbooks.blogspot.com. That's jewishbooks, one word, .blogspot.com. Links to the books and CDs mentioned on the show are available on this website. Thanks for listening, and happy reading!